It's time to talk sports, it's time for the show. When you hear this song on the radio, it's time to tune in, better act fast. Let me get that Potograph, Sports Talk Radio. Starting now.
Let's go! What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 125 of Let Me Get That Potograph. As always, my name is Drew, or the DH, and wow. Just wow, guys. This is going to be one heck of an awesome episode. I'm so excited. We've got two awesome guests. Ryan and Scott Rapoport are both joining the show a little bit later today to discuss a multitude of different things, as this is one of the busiest weeks in the history of the hobby. Now, full disclosure, this episode started as an NSCC recap. We were going to talk about the National, go over a lot of things that had to do with the National, but as I was starting to edit the episode, we recorded it, everything was done, news started to break left and right that was so big, we decided to scratch the episode and start from the very beginning, because like I said, this is one of the busiest and craziest weeks in the history of the hobby, and it is a seismic shift that is happening in the next couple of years. And so we had to scratch a couple of segments, move a couple of things around, but don't worry, we will be airing those segments in future episodes of Let Me Get That Potograph, because they're really great segments and we want to get this information out to people because I think it's important. But there was so much big news this week, we had to go with this stuff first. So change of plans, had to call an audible, Omaha, right before release date, because this is just something you can't sit on. And of course, I'm talking about the two major events that happened this week. First, PWCC being banned from eBay for good, auctions off eBay, and eBay with some very scandalous accusations in their statement accusing PWCC employees of shill bidding. And while no information has been put out yet, I did reach out to eBay. They've assured me that multiple lawyers have looked into all of this and that they will be presenting evidence in the future, whether that's in public or in court. That's a complete different story, but they feel comfortable enough to make those accusations. So we're going to see what happens with that, because that's pretty big. Now, PWCC had been planning on moving to their own marketplace for a while now, so this obviously just, fast tracks that. But it's going to be very interesting to see what PWCC does, because let's face it, you can create your own marketplace all you want, but you were always going to have at least somewhat of a footprint in eBay, even if it's the lower end cards, which is probably where you make most of your bread and butter anyway, I would assume. You need that. So it was quite interesting to me to see, and it's going to be interesting to see going forward what eBay has, if they have anything, and what PWCC's response is to this. And while eBay dropped the hammer on PWCC, just a little bit later, Fanatics said, "Hold my beer," and they they have announced a deal with Major League Baseball, to where Major League Baseball is basically voiding their agreement with Topps. They're not renewing it. It's done. And Fanatics is taking over as card makers for baseball. And in the press release, it said, for now it's at baseball, but that they are going after the basketball and football license as well. So Fanatics, of all people, is jumping into the card game, and it looks like they're going to be the producers of cards going forward, at least baseball. And this could happen, in just a couple years. And we're going to touch on this a lot later, so I don't want to get into too much detail with it. But Major League Baseball and Topps go back over 70 years. So to see this move happen is absolutely shocking to me. And then as soon as that happens, to make matters, depending on how you see it, worse or better, Mudrick Capital also announces that they are not going to keep Topps. They're dropping Topps, and Topps will not be going public. So a massive, massive shift in the hobbies coming. But a little bit later, Scott Rapoport and I will discuss this in great detail and tell you why the combination of all these things happening together, while they might seem bad and it might seem like Topps is just being devalued and dropped and dropped and dropped, why it may end up being absolutely great for the hobby. It could go a couple of different ways. It's not cut and dry as A and B. It could go a couple of different ways. But with everything together, there is a recipe for a cocktail to where this could be an incredibly great thing for the hobby. But shocking is an understatement, and a lot of changes in the landscape of the hobby are coming. I told you on this show months ago when PSA was bought and Golden, was bought out and everything. I told you dominoes were going to fall all year. I told you on the last episode, right after the National, expect some big news. Big deals are brokered at the National. Big deals are handled at the National. Big deals are finalized at the National because that's when everyone's face-to-face as opposed to sitting on the computer or sending emails. So lots of these meetings that you see, lots of these times when you see people from multiple companies getting together, they're working on these deals. You've seen it times and time again. Every National, as soon as it's over, there's some major stuff going on, and this is no exception. I told you dominoes were going to fall. First it was Topps going public. Now they're not, but they've been bought out. Now Fanatics is going to be producing cards. They're getting more and more into the sports industry. It's the Wild West right now in the card world, and we're seeing this massive change as the new influx of not only new blood of collectors, investors, flippers, whatever you want to call them. Besides all that new blood, the major investors, the hedge fund guys, and the people that are looking at it from a business aspect, they're also flooding in. And like I said when dominoes were falling, these are a couple of major dominoes that probably kick over 20 or 30, but it's not done yet. Look for a lot of other companies to have changes in ownership, changes in multiple different things, partnerships, consolidation. It's all happening, and Fanatics making a major play, and Major League Baseball shocking me, ending a 70-year partnership with Topps, and it's going to be very interesting moving forward. But stay tuned later in the episode for a full breakdown of everything to do with that Topps Fanatics Major League Baseball drama that's going on. But guys, like I said, it is a jam-packed episode, so we're going to move on now to the new segment that's taken the nation by storm. Let Her Rip took the nation by storm so much it got its own TV show sponsored by Topps and Panini, but we got a new show taking its place, and that, of course, is Movers and Shakers. Alright guys, and for Movers and Shakers, we're going to be expanding the segment a little bit in the coming weeks with a couple of different mini segments in this segment, but we're going to keep it OG today, but we're chock full of some guys from multiple different sports that deserve all the attention in the world, and honestly, they're getting absolutely none. And the first player on this week's Movers and Shakers is Rover. Now, he just came back from an injury, I know, and a lot of people are worried about his injury history and everything, but guys, get his stuff now. He is criminally low, and just listen to these stats. Since he's come back in the last 8 games, 13 hits, 393 batting average, career 3.2 WAR, but he has, in the last 8 games, 13 hits, 6 RBIs, 7 runs, and 2 home runs. The dude is absolutely raking. Rover is a major buy. His stuff is going to go up. It's starting to go up. Grab some of his stuff while you still can because it's going to go to the stratosphere. The White Sox are a crazy good team that with the addition of Craig Kimbrell, they're going to go deep. They have the pitching to go deep, and the pressure is really off of him. With the injuries and everything going on and the White Sox playing so good, Tim Anderson stepping up, another player I'm about to mention stepping up, all the pressure is off of Rover, and you're seeing it in the results. He looks patient and disciplined at the plate, And if he keeps this up, he's going to be putting up MVP type numbers. Now, another player on this week's Movers and Shakers is his partner in crime that just got back from an injury, and that, of course, is Eloy Jimenez. Now, Eloy, just listen to these stats just like Robert. Last 10 games, 19 hits, 6 runs, 13 RBIs, and a .325 batting average. That's absolutely insane. These last 10 games, since he's been healthy, he has been raking just like Robert. And just like Robert, his stuff is low because it's that old gone and forgotten, out of sight, out of mind. Both of these guys had been injured. Both of them had some issues even on their comeback. So people forgot about them, especially considering, like I said, how good the White Sox were playing. But when you're looking at guys right now in baseball, look towards the postseason. Look at players that could have some postseason impact. Eloy and his partner in crime, Lubob, they both are insanely affordable. Colored parallels are insanely affordable in PSA 10s or SGC 10s or Beckett or HGA, not HGA, but Beckett 10s, whatever you want. They are still affordable. Pick them up. You want these guys in teams that are going to be going deep. Like I said, I think the White Sox are going to be going very deep, if not World Series champions. But giving these guys who can go on streaks like this a postseason berth, guys, it's absolute just craziness. A PSA 10 of either of these guys is so far under $100, it's absurd. And they're going to be way over $100 just when the postseason starts. And if they keep up what they're doing right now, this stuff has a chance to be some of the biggest gainers in the hobby right now. So Lubob and Eloy are two of my movers and shakers this week that I highly recommend you grabbing right now, because in a couple of weeks, it's going to be too late. Now, moving over to football, we've got all the quarterbacks taking all the attention, and I've told you how I feel about Joe Burrow. I think he is still a major buy, so I'll add him in on here, but I'm not going to keep repeating myself with Burrow. Just buy him. But with all the attention paid on quarterbacks, there's one player that I think is an absolute steal at his price point. This rookie is going to absolutely pad stats all year. He is going to be a highlight reel player, and he's going to have massive numbers and a huge role in the offense. And that, of course, is Naji Harris. I firmly believe he's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think the Steelers are going to be going to a very, very run-heavy game as Big Ben gets, closer towards the end of his career. He can still sling it, but I see a lot of Naji Harris in this offense, period. I think they're going to be running the ball a lot with him. I would not be surprised to see him catch a lot of balls out of the backfield. Remember, Big Ben loves a running back with some hands. Harris, from what I've seen and from the reports I've heard, has been excellent out of the backfield, catching passes, moving. I mean, once he gets in the open field, it's scary. He can also hit you with a little power. He's a lot stronger than I thought. Naji Harris has it all. And when I'm looking at all these players, I think a lot of guys are in position to do a lot of great things. I think a lot of these quarterbacks are going to be good. There's 5 new ones. I think we're going to have 2 that are going to be franchise quarterbacks, and I don't know exactly which 2 those are yet. I have my ideas, and I'll discuss that on a future episode, but I don't think all 5 are going to be that great, but I think they're going to have decent years. One of them may have a Herbert-type year where they come close or make it to the playoffs, but don't expect deep runs or Super Bowls by any of these guys. But Naji Harris, I see absolutely crossing 1,000 yards, possibly both 1,000 rushing and receiving. I see him as a dual threat type of player in the Pittsburgh offense. I think that's the way they're going to use him. Naji Harris, crazy undervalued. He's going to have 1 or 2 of those games where he's just going to explode. He's going to have that time when the game slows down a little bit for him to just absolutely pad the stats and have some just explosive numbers, and that's the time you want to have his stuff that's the time you want to be able to move it. So if you're in there looking for these guys and you're in here movers and shakers looking for guys to pick up, Naji Harris, great pickup outside of the quarterbacks, which, everyone wants to grab. And a couple more guys here. We're going to move over to basketball real quick. And speaking of the game slowing down, there's one player that is so incredibly low in terms of price point. It's crazy not to just take a flyer on this man. And the man is Celtics Peyton Pritchard. You guys have heard the news, 92 points over in whatever league that he was just recently playing in. 92 points. But looking at everything that I've seen and watching him play, it seems like the game has slowed down for him mentally. It seems like he's figured it out. It seems like he understands the pace. He understands the spacing, which is the major issue every rookie has. And it was his major problem last year, but it looks like he understands spacing a little bit more. I'm going to be curious to see how this team is, but on a Celtics team that is really struggling to find an identity and is kind of looking towards the future to find that identity, I think Peyton Pritchard is one of those players that is going to take one of the biggest leaps from year one to year two, kind of like a Shai or a player or a Bam Adebayo, a player that took more than a rookie year before he really truly made his mark and fully could grasp the speed and the spacing and the technical, aspects of the NBA game. And Peyton Pritchard is somebody that I think, judging from what I'm seeing, now granted I'm not watching him play NBA games, but from any film I've seen, it looks a little better. He's in a lot better shape. We all know he can shoot. And like I said, on a Celtics team that has a major fan base, Celtics stuff sells great. And it's always in product. It's always big. For a guy in a big basketball collecting market, he's that sharpshooter that could come out and be that identity and be that future of the Celtics and a player that they could build around. So Peyton Pritchard, as low as he is, as cheap as you can get his stuff, why not take a gamble, take a risk, and see what happens? Because worst case scenario, it's not going to go any lower. You just sell it and you take it as a wash. And finally, before we wrap up Movers and Shakers, just one thing. National Treasures came out and LaMelo Ball RPAs are out. And Jesus, guys, come on, stop it. This is just a warning for everybody. Stop saying Miles Bridges signed the stupid autographs. It's as dumb as the Luka's mom thing. Guys, I've seen LaMelo sign 1 million of these things in person. That is his in-person signature. It has been in Charlotte for a good 6 months or so. And just to let you guys know, these National Treasures cards were signed at events. They were not sent to players' houses to be signed. These high-end cards are signed at events with countless witnesses. I understand they look similar. That's what happens. Miles Bridges probably taught him the cursive because, let's be honest, no one learns cursive anymore. But stop with this isn't the LaMelo stuff. Now, normally it's a little more fluid, but if you look at some of the National Treasure ones that are pulled out, you can see the fluidity of it. So stop with the comparisons. Stop with the conspiracy theories. Just enjoy things. If you don't agree with the price, that's fine. That means you probably weren't bidding on it in the first place, so who cares? Just move on, but stop comparing it to Miles Bridges. There's no conspiracy. LaMelo signed the cards. There's videos. There's proof. There's countless things, and I'll get plenty of graphers to video their next graph session with him, showing you that's exactly how he signs his signature, and he has for a very long time. So it has nothing to do with movers and shakers outside of he's selling some $50,000 RPAs. So that's some moving and shaking. Congrats, LaMelo and the Hornets. But Miles Bridges did not sign those cards. So get over it, everybody, and just go enjoy the hobby and collect. Enjoy it. I know everyone wants to get angry about stuff, but please just enjoy it. This hobby really is a lot of fun when you just kick back, rip some packs, go through some singles, and enjoy it. And welcome back, everybody. And now on the line, we've got two of our very special guests for the day as we continue our NSCC wrap-up show. Two guys that were at the National. One of them's been on the show before, one making his debut, Mr. Scott Rapoport and Ryan from Rye Guy Sports. Thanks, guys, for joining the show.
Thanks for having us on, Drew.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, we're talking a lot about the NSCC today, a lot about what was probably, at least in my opinion, the craziest national I've ever been to. And Ryan, I know you were set up there, and Scott, you were pretty much around and about with a million booths because that's what you do.
Yeah.
So you made your presence felt, I know. But before we dive into everything, first of all, how did you guys think of the National this year? What did you think of it, both from a dealer perspective and as a guy that was, walking the floor most of the day?
Well, I think it was definitely a busy start to it. There wasn't really too much downtime as normal. I think it kind of kicked off pretty aggressively and didn't really start. I did notice more people. I have a sign that says buy, sell, trade, but I did notice more people coming up to the booth, trading and selling due to just, market conditions. And I think that was quite a bit, but it was awesome all the way through. It was great.
So I have sort of mixed reviews about it. It seemed, and don't get me wrong, having a lot of people at the National is a good thing. At some point it was hard to move around, in between booths and things like that. So that's kind of the negative. That's the downside. But
and boom mics everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. The amount of people, though, kind of made for a different experience compared to past Nationals. I know they hit record attendance, or they beat the 2019 attendance by Friday. So, Saturday and Sunday were just kind of bonus numbers for them there. But the amount of stuff that I saw moving at the show, both at dealer tables and, and dealers buying and, wax moving and things like that, it was insane. The amount of money being passed back and forth was hands down the most that I have seen at, Nationals going back, 20 years, that I've, been going to. So it's I'm still taking it all in a little bit, still kind of, looking back mentally at what, kind of what went on. But I got a chance to see some really cool stuff, and I was happy with kind of my part and what came out with it. So it was definitely a solid show, even though I wasn't there, selling at all this, during that week.
Yeah, no, I agree. The transactions and the sheer amount of volume I saw that was moving was it shocked me. It blew my mind. I watched countless deals that were way up there in price, and I don't think I'd seen that much money on a table in a real long time, at least not in a legal setting, but, we won't get into that. But, while I was at the National, I obviously was doing a lot of content. I was walking the floor, interviewing as many people as I can, and, a couple of booths stuck out, and I talked about a couple of them earlier in the show, but one that really stuck out to me was the SGC booth. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have both of you guys on today. But the SGC booth, and Peter in particular, I had a chance, if you guys haven't seen it, the video interview is on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. But, I got a chance to interview Peter over at SGC. And let's focus on their booth for a minute, because I know, Ryan, you deal a lot in SGC. But they made a pretty bold decision when it comes to grading companies at the National, especially with, like you said, record attendance breaking, by Friday, tons of people there. And they made the decision to not grade on site. And instead, they made it into an experience. They had awesome breaking the entire time. Just everything that they did at that booth, I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought the one thing at the National that a lot of booths missed out on this year that had the space and had the capabilities was to do a lot of interactive stuff, to do a lot of fun stuff. They used all their space to try and move stuff and sell stuff, which I get and I understand, but SGC kind of went the complete and total opposite way. And I thought it was a refreshing booth when you're walking through and you're seeing the same thing a million times. You come up to this booth that has so many different things going on. to both educate you and, entertain you as well. What did you guys think of SGC's decision to, go that route at a time when grading is so popular and SGC is, kind of making that move up?
So, Drew, I had a little bit of advanced knowledge on what they were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be completely honest, and I've told Peter this. I questioned that decision.
Right.
When they made it, they came out, I'm like, okay, don't, maybe not slab, but maybe come up with some sort of, raw grade type product, that they can do there. And Peter kept saying, no, let's, I want to focus on, the people. This is going to be a marketing driven type show, but then he also pointed out that, look, if they have to bring graders up to the show, that slows down their production that they have back in the office. And their goal was to keep that timeline that they, have had, since the beginning of the year, and, pump out cards every 2 to 3 weeks for people at a fair price. So I had some reservations, going in, and I was there on Tuesday when they got there and, kind of got everything set up. And, Peter told me what the plan was. And then, he went out and got a bunch of wax that I was kind of shocked at, some of the stuff that he got. But I'm going to tell you, the decision to not grade and do what they did was 110% the right decision. The people that visited the booth, were able to interact with people that do things for SGC that most people don't ever get to talk to. Now, they didn't have any of the graders up, but they had, research, team. They had, different, people from different divisions of the company, and Peter himself.
Yeah.
I mean, how often do you walk up to a PSA booth and, get normally, up until a month ago, I would have said, get a chance to talk to Joe Orlando. But, how often do you get to talk, actually have a conversation with Nat Turner? You don't. I will say that Jeremy Murray from Beckett is very approachable. I've known him for years. So that's one of those things he will absolutely talk to people, but usually the lines there for grading are so long that, that there isn't the time. And then the breaks, like I said, I was kind of shocked at some of the stuff that Peter picked up for the breaks, but by the end of the week, he was having so much fun with that.
Right.
That, I was joking around and, asking him when SGC breaks is going to be popping up, what your YouTube channel is coming in. And I think because of the way that they did that, and I will say the number walking around the room and, looking in people's showcases and what they had on display at their booths, I saw more SGC slabs this year than I have ever seen, at any show. And I think what they were doing in the positive, kind of reviews that they got from it were really, it was helping to move, their slab product. And
no, absolutely. Yeah. And, Ryan, you're somebody that has you deal a lot with SGC slabs. So from a dealer perspective, with them, how was it at the floor in relation to SGC slabs? Because one thing that you hear all the time, is, I've got the slabs, but they're not moving. But lately I've seen them start to move quite a bit. How was it at the National having a large inventory of SGC cards? Was it moving, steadily?
Yeah. I think they just, they've added to their legitimacy over the last 6 months. Like most times people would come up and I'd say 1 out of every 4 guys would start asking questions about SGC. SGC is not really that much of a secret anymore. You have all the major group subbers now that have taken a position with SGC because, ultimately it's the only guy in town. So they've been exposed to, all the PSA guys, the BGS guys, all the serious dealers, along with, the group subbers. So I think it's a more legitimate grader now, and it's considered, one of the top 3. And if not, it's very darn close to the second. I think once more SGC slabs continue to get out there, which it's obvious. You see more and more every day. The more that's just going to grow and help SGC. But as far as selling, from a dealer's perspective at the National, I sold anywhere from a $15 SGC slab to a $5,000 SGC slab consistently throughout the show. That's baseball, basketball, modern basketball, not so much vintage baseball, but 70s, 80s, football, all the way to UFC, WWF, and soccer. So a very wide range, and I can tell you, it all sold very well and consistent. It was very consistent throughout the show. More than I remember when I really started doing a lot with SGC once, like, it was very difficult with PSA and the lead times, and if you're trying to make proper turns in such a volatile market, right? It's just extremely hard to do that. So when I went to SGC, let's say 9 months and even a year ago, it wasn't even close to where it's at today as far as explaining SGC, talking to people and trying to convince them, like that part's kind of over with now. And it's just that reluctancy is just, it's not nearly what it was. Never mind a year ago, but like 6 months ago, it's really taken off,
Yeah, no, I noticed a lot of SGC moving, and it kind of, thinking about something you just said there was very interesting to me, and that was that more of you said even almost more modern was being moved, and that's the one thing that I know, Scott, you run a bulk submission service and with SGC, so you deal with a lot of cards from a lot of different people as well. So both of you are very well aware and well, versed in SGC and their methods. I know Peter well, and I've worked with him for quite a bit. But the one thing that you always heard was SGC's for vintage, not for modern. But I'm seeing now a very, very quick turnaround. I mean, SGC really is. If you look at a lot of grades and everything, and a lot of comps, I was looking at some card ladder and doing some comparison, and that they're really up there with some BGS grades now, even in modern cards. What do you attribute that change to where, like a year ago, it was almost unheard of to be looking for a modern card in an SGC slab. Let's just be honest. It was tough to move. It wasn't as in demand as anything else, a BGS or PSA, but now it seems that there is a lot of modern interest. You just said it yourself at the National, so much interest in maybe not 2021, but the modern era of cards. What do you attribute that to? I kind of see it as a lot of new people in the industry jumping on and using SGC. Well, they're subbing modern cards, so obviously they're going to buy what they're subbing. But what do you guys attribute, this rise in the modern, market for SGC? Because that's the one area that they always seem to struggle with.
Well, Drew, I think the biggest, there's a couple of different pieces to that. The PSA closing off to bulk obviously was a huge one.
Yes.
The fact that SGC can have a 2 to 3 week turnaround time is huge. I have, I've got Prism rookies that I've graded with SGC. I got Obi Toppin, sitting right over here. And how many of those, and it's just, just a base, nothing special, but, those are something that people would send into PSA in bulk. How many PSA slabs are there with an Obi Toppin? Base Prism rookie? None. And that, I think that has lent itself to, people moving towards SGCs because they're actually in existence. Yeah. PSA doesn't have any of those out yet. If you look at their pop report, they haven't graded any of them yet because the product, because of where they are in their cycle, with catching up, with catching up with the bulk, orders. And when the product came out, they don't have any, and nobody's going to pay, $200 to $300 to sub that card, but somebody may pay $25. There's a couple other, pieces to it as well. The financial difference, And I'll use the $300 level with PSA as the comparison, because the $200 level has only been back for 6 weeks now.
Yeah.
But when they closed down to everything but the Super Express, there's a lot of people that didn't want to pay the money.
Mm-hmm.
So what a lot of people are doing is they're sending cards to SGC for the $25 that that I've got it at, $30 or the $30. I think Ryan's at, you're at the $25 level too, right?
26.
26. Okay. We're in two different regions of the country, so it's
Right.
a little bit more competitive here in Chicago. But for $25, you can get an accurate grade on your card, have it slabbed, and have it sellable. And even though the comps may not match up with, let's say, an SGC 10 versus a PSA 10, you spent $275 less to have it slabbed. So if you're selling it, if the comp difference, let's say a PSA 10 sells for $500, but a SGC 10 sells for $375, it's a $125 difference right there.
Right.
But you saved $275, or even now at the $200 level, $175. So you're still ahead of the game, when it comes, if you're trying to turn inventory.
Yeah.
That's been a huge, huge piece. With what a lot of people are sending me some amazing stuff. The cards, and I'll post sometimes when they come back, in my subgroup. It is there's some unreal looking cards. I know, Ryan, you've seen some pictures of some of these that I'll post in the chat group that we're both in, but it's not just low end stuff, it's the high end stuff that's coming in too. And I think that price difference and the turn time has really made a huge difference in the popularity of SGC.
No, absolutely. Ryan, what your thoughts? Anything you think Scott nailed it? Or?
Well, I think, yeah, definitely. I agree with everything you said. I think what SGC has compared to some of these newer guys too that are coming out, is they're trusted because of the vintage history that they've had. A year ago when people didn't like SGC and, there was no shows going on or anything like that, I sold a lot on eBay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people were buying those slabs and they would tell me straight out, and I knew some of these guys, and they were cracking the slabs and then sending them into PSA. It was a joke for a long time with SGC because, it was well known that a lot of people were doing that. Now it's not so much the case because you have so much more on the market. You're actually able to comp them. And obviously what really helped SGC was the PSA shutdown.
Yeah.
People were already aggravated with PSA. They already had the issues with BGS. It was a perfect storm that happened. And then, Pete came out, he started going on, YouTube with a couple guys. He came out pretty bold, and God bless him for it. I love his energy. And he had to fall on his sword because he fell short. He had no idea what was going to happen. Happened.
Right.
Once they got over that hurdle, and I tell those guys all the time, I admire those guys. They're young, they're motivated, and they're not afraid to ask their customers questions and look on ways to improve, and that's what happened. I think they really learned from that mistake. Pete told everybody, 30 days, and he was going to stick to it, yada, yada, yada. Then, you got a lot of people pissed off. They were at 4 months, 5 months, even 6 months. They corrected that problem. And when they corrected that problem, everything that Scott just mentioned happened. You had PSA, the big announcement shutting down, and BGS was right after that, I believe, as far as the announcement of, charging whatever they were. And at that point, Pete was able to really hire a lot of people and scale properly, and he got more space, and he continues to do that today, and he just really positioned himself really well when this opportunity hit and PSA shut down, and so it's kind of like a perfect storm, a little bit of everything. And, you get that herd mentality, the more SGC you see on eBay, you start seeing at these big shows now, you start seeing at the National, you start walking by guys that at the National or the just legitimate dealers, and you start seeing SGC slabs in their case, and you start seeing the bigger cards like Scott mentioned.
Yes.
Like that adds legitimacy at the end of the day, you know.
And you should bring up really quick, the Ryan, big modern cards.
Right.
The big vintage,
modern,
the big vintage cards have always been in SGC.
Yeah.
And I only bring that up just because that Honus Wagner just sold for like $6 million. Once you throw in the buyer's premium.
Yeah.
So that's obviously a big card, but the big modern cards is kind of what we
big modern,
yeah.
I think they've really done a wonderful job with, like you said, the first time around, kind of had to fall on the sword, weren't prepared, everything happened. But, I know Peter and a lot of the people down there and a lot of people that work for him because I grew up about 10 minutes from their office. And, I love the new office space they have. And I love everything that they've got. And they did a good job this time around when, the perfect storm, as you said, happened. They were equipped, they were prepared, and I think that's really brought a lot more trust in people. And it looks to have brought a lot more trust in their grades as well, as you see the comp starting to really go up there on not just vintage but modern. Like I said, really a 9.5 can be very comparable to a BGS, sometimes more. On modern cards, it really depends on the set nowadays and the player, but you're seeing a lot more of those, that really big increase. And I do think they're set up for a chance to really, put their mark and put their stay in a grading company that's here to stay, as we've got so many fly-by-night grading companies these days. Pretty much every acronym in the world is a grading company, it seems. But, I really do think that and I really do think, rolling back to the beginning before we wrap it up, I really do think that what they did at the National, doing that interactive thing where they can interact with their customers, these new customers that may be using SGC just because PSA shut down until the bulk options open. A lot of those people are going to be converted by the time that bulk option opens in January, because that's probably when it's going to be. And that, that could really position them very well for the future. So I thought what they did at the National was brilliant, and I think it's going to go a long way in establishing consistent value with not just vintage, but the modern cards.
Agreed.
Yep.
All right. Well, Ryan, Scott, thanks so much for coming on the show today. I wanted to touch on some of the cooler booths at the National, and SGC was definitely one of them. But before I let you go, Ryan, let everybody know where they can find you on Facebook and all that stuff, and anything that you got going on.
Yeah, so it's on Instagram. It's Rye Guy Sports. So it's Rye_Guy_Sports. And I'm on Whatnot as well. And it's the same address. And then my eBay is Rye Guy Sports. And also my Facebook is Rye Guy Sports.
Awesome. Well, big shout out to Whatnot, as I'll be joining you on Whatnot. My debut stream is Monday, so I'll be joining you on the Whatnot platform here shortly. But
awesome.
Ryan,
thanks, Drew. Take care. Bye, guys.
All right, welcome back to Let Me Get That Potograph. And guys, well, this hobby is a little crazy lately, and we've got a little different episode coming to you today, or a little part of an episode that was not planned. While I had Scott on the line with Ryan, and we were talking about SGC and everything, some major news dropped, and myself and Scott had recorded a segment after that we will be airing, and I will be putting it out here in the near future. But this news is so big that we decided to grab Scott, bring him back on, and discuss some of the most ridiculously crazy and unexpected news I've heard in a long time. So first off, welcome back, Mr. Scott Rapoport. What's up, bud?
Drew, thanks, man. This is it's been a common occurrence lately, and I will say that yesterday, just to let some people in, to see how the sausage is made behind the scenes. This is not a live show, so things are recorded, sometimes in advance. And yesterday, I should put the date because, years from now, somebody, could be listening to this and be like, well, wait a minute, what's going on? So yesterday was August 19th, 2021.
And we had recorded the segment with Ryan, and then we had recorded a segment after that we thought was the biggest story of the week to drop, and that was about the eBay and PWCC piece, which will pop up a little bit later. But then a little bit later in the day, Fanatics was like, "Hey, hold my beer."
Yeah.
Because this whole thing drops that Fanatics is going to be taking over the Major League Baseball license.
What?
And I know it's crazy. So they're getting the Players Association license first, and I think that's after 2023 or something like that. And then after 2025, they will take over the MLB license and be the exclusive producer of Major League Baseball cards. And I mean, I was a little shocked. And not completely shocked, because look, we all have seen Fanatics grow over the years, and we've seen them get their hands into everything. They're the ones that actually manufacture the uniforms for Major League Baseball, even though it's got the Nike logo on it.
Yeah,
they're made by Fanatics.
Yeah.
And you'd never know. You'd think they were made in some Nike factory, but no, they're made by Fanatics. We all know, those of us that have been in the industry for a long time, we all know that Fanatics has, exclusive autograph signers. Here in Chicago, they have, I shouldn't say here. I'm in Chicago. I'm a diehard Cubs fan. I'm a season ticket holder. And, prior to a couple weeks ago, they had the exclusive autograph agreements with both Cubs, Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo, and they are no longer Cubs, even though both of them still have the autograph deal with Fanatics. So it's a little sore subject, for those of us. But
of course,
we're kind of going on here. So basically, Fanatics yesterday was like, "Here, hold my beer. We're going to blow this out of the water." And I'll tell you, there are two parties out there that are happy as hell to hear this story drop, because nobody's talking about anything else now. And those two parties are PWCC and eBay. Which will become evident later as to why they don't want anybody, they're happy about this. But I'm partially shocked, because Topps has been printing baseball cards
70 years.
It'll be 74 or something like that when the contract expires. I'm actually really mad that they didn't allow a 1-year extension just so they can get a 75th anniversary piece in there too. But here's the other big piece. And this is the piece that isn't really being reported. I've got a very reliable source that mentioned yesterday after this dropped that they're also going to be taking the NFL and NBA licenses from Payton.
That's the plan. The plan is to go after those licenses.
Now, I'm not too. Well, no, my source is telling me it's a done deal.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that it is. And I mean, this has had a domino effect even beyond that. I mean, today, August 20th, Topps is no longer going public. It killed the Mudrick Capital deal. I mean,
you can't bring a company public that has a defined shelf life.
Right. And this changes the hobby forever. This is a move that, honestly, I mean, we talk all the time about big moves, and we've seen major acquisitions, Nat Turner buying PSA, big deal. Golden being bought by a massive company, which was a big deal. But getting this license and Fanatics moving forward, and they have a wonderful person, I will say, that's going to be running the trading card area, and Josh from the founder of StockX, an incredible guy and someone who loves this hobby like no other. So I'm excited on that aspect, but Fanatics jumping in and doing this, it raises a lot of questions for me, because not only, what is Topps going to do? Are they going to do airbrush designs? Are we going to go back to, is everything going to be unlicensed? Are they going to continue to do it? And like you said, they're going for after Panini next, who doesn't mind doing it.
I don't think they can do one, because unlicensed, what Panini does.
Well, yeah, they have the Players Association.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. And they're not going to have, Topps isn't going to have the Players Association.
Well, do you think that this opens the door for the possibility of more licenses being handed out to other people, or do you think Fanatics is going to try and position it to where they can have exclusives on everything with the Players Association? And do you think it, because then then they truly have a monopoly. Then they've got it all.
No,
What do you?
I think it is going to be a situation where it's going to be exclusive licenses. I don't see Fanatics forking out this kind of money for the for the license in order for Major League Baseball, the NBA and the NFL to say, hey, we're also going to allow, let's say Upper Deck to make cards. Now, there's going to be there's a lot of people that aren't happy with Fanatics.
Yes.
That they've priced a lot of people out of the market. And their pricing has led, strictly from like a jersey standpoint, their high pricing has led to a flood of knockoffs coming from China on jersey sales, and people are buying them up left and right because they can afford them. I will say at the National, I picked up a City Connect Anthony Rizzo jersey like 2 days after he got traded. And I got a great deal. I was able to, I talked to the guy who was managing the booth at Fanatics, and I was able to talk him down a little bit. And they were already at a pretty low price because they normally go for like $400 and something, and I was able to pick it up for $150. And I'm happy about that because I'm hoping he comes back. But the whole thing is just, it's insane because Topps and I will say, they're not perfect by any means, but from a quality standpoint, I actually like their products better than Panini's.
Right. I will agree with that. And also they're a mainstay in this industry. Like we said, by the time this ends, they will have almost celebrated 75 years.
Yeah.
A lot of the most iconic cards in the world are Topps. I mean, granted, there's iconic cards from every company, but a lot are Topps. And the thing that really concerns me when I hear Fanatics going after all the licensing is, well, this is a company that's going to have to build trust with the entire hobby, which is not, and the hobby nowadays rejects anything new. Automatically, a vast majority reject anything new immediately. And now we're not talking about taking a slab or a grade or something like that. We're talking about taking an entire market and making it completely different. I mean, I do see this making a run. I do think Topps cards are going to start to make a massive run in this hobby and value-wise. I think people are going to be scooping them up until that's over. I think Topps is set on the secondary market-wise because I think a lot of people have that die-hard connection to Topps because it's all they've ever collected, and now all of a sudden you're going to rip it away from them.
Well, and here's the thing: there is a precedent that has actually been set because remember, Topps used to have an NBA and an NFL license,
right?
So what has happened to the Topps cards that were produced for basketball and football prior to them losing the licenses? And I mean, look at one of the most popular Topps cards that's out there is the LeBron rookie. Yeah. And even though they're not, Topps isn't making basketball cards anymore, those LeBrons have now, granted, part of it is, LeBron's value, in general, even though I'm not a fan of LeBron, but I will say that, his cards are valuable. They have a place.
Look at Kevin Durant's. Kevin Durant's. I mean,
absolutely.
Another example.
So there's that piece. So there is sort of precedent as to what is going to happen to the cards that were produced prior to, Fanatics.
Baseball in particular, everything else, like the football and everything, I understand. But baseball, if nothing else, fans and collectors are purists. Like no other sport. Like football, okay, a lot of the football fan base just quickly adapted to Panini, no problem whatsoever. There's some that are like,
but there were parallels because Panini did have an NFL license alongside of Topps, so they were both producing cards at the same time.
Right.
So it's not it's not like an immediate cutoff one year and the next year it's a huge switch.
Of course, it's just my big concern is like that baseball purists. I mean, they reject new colors that come into rainbows, and I mean that just doesn't happen in other sports.
Well, that's just not baseball.
So,
no, it
and so I see it being very difficult, and it's going to be very interesting to see how these Topps purists feel when that baseball license is ripped away and how they react, because I think it is a little different than football just because of baseball's die-hard collecting fan base is is quite different than football when it comes to loyalty and just the purity of the collection.
Well, here's the thing. I have a prediction. I actually have multiple predictions. All right. So what Fanatics just did basically killed the future value of Topps. It stopped the company going public, and Murdoch Capital, they are sitting on this company that they thought was going to, be a massive cash cow for them for years to come. And now all of a sudden, I don't want to say it's worthless because there's definitely value there. But prediction number one is that, and this is if Fanatics is smart, they will be able to buy the Topps brand for pennies on the dollar.
Yes.
When the contract is over, and continue to issue cards under the Topps brand, but owned by Fanatics. And if that's the case, I don't think it's, especially with all the different brands, your flagship stuff, your Chrome, all the different product sets that they have where you've already got designs for, you've already got a design team. You don't necessarily need to bring in new people. You don't need to create new products. And I think that, is a definite possibility, especially if they can get that, that brand, kind of like how Brian Gray purchased the Leaf brand,
right?
When he was Razor, prior to that, it was an extraordinarily, smart move for him to do that because the brand was a known quantity. Well, the Topps brand has significantly more value to it as a brand than Leaf did. So, but I think there's a good chance that, Murdoch Capital is going to wind up selling Topps off to Fanatics, and Fanatics will continue using the Topps brand. And I think that would be an extraordinarily smart move to do. Now, the second prediction that I have is, since they seem to also be taking over everything, that Panini has except for soccer, my next prediction is that they're actually going to make a play to purchase Cardamundi.
Yes.
Because they're printing all the Panini stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're printing 90% of the Topps stuff, except for the Topps Now and the Project 70 and stuff like that.
And that overseas Europe press that they just got for the Formula One and soccer stuff.
Don't get me started on that. I am not happy with that. Not happy with that one.
Worst press ever, needs to be fired. But I could see that the Cardamundi thing is something I was going to bring up to you, because I do see them trying to get it to where they control every single aspect of the card industry in terms of production of the cards.
Yes.
Because if you look at their history, that's what they've done with anything else they've gotten into. And so that's the first thing I thought of when I saw that, was that, okay, yes, that now they've got the company. I didn't think about it, but I'll bet you're right. I'll bet you Mudrick does end up selling them off. And if they were to keep the Topps name, I think that would be brilliant. And there's nothing wrong with throwing a Fanatics logo on there. I think that.
Well, I don't think they would need a Fanatics logo. I think they would just need the Fanatics.
Oh, it would be on the back. It would be on the back and the bottom. But
it's one of those things where it's like, I kind of like how Upper Deck does it with when they make the Fleer products,
right?
They put the small Upper Deck logo on the back, and that would be fine to see. Topps logo on the front, Fanatics logo on the back.
Yeah.
I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah.
Now, there are certain products that I would love to see them continue. If that happens, and if they wind up getting all the intellectual property from it too, I would love to see them continue on with certain brands. Obviously, the flagship brands, Chrome, things like, and I happen to be a huge fan of Allen and Ginter. Yeah. It's the one product I do every year that, I don't do it to try to flip cards or anything like that. I do it because I love the uniqueness of it. It's fun. It's kind of like Goodwin, with Upper Deck. It's just a fun product.
Yeah.
And I hope they continue on with stuff like that.
Well, the good news is, the first thing I thought of now, this is good news. If they're truly making a play for every single license, and they end up being able to acquire the Topps name, we've got Topps football, we've got Topps every type of soccer. Yep. Finally, we've got everything. It opens the door to everything.
But they may not get soccer. The only way they get soccer from Topps or from Panini is if they purchase the company outright, because those licenses are separate.
Yes.
The Champions League, European Premier League, those
are all
they're all
La
separate
Liga.
licenses. So the question is, Panini is they are a European company, and soccer is the biggest sport, and for some reason they don't, and I'm pretty sure they wanted to put the NFL license by accident because they heard it was football.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, people started using their hands and stuff like that, and they're throwing the ball and running with the ball and carrying it and stuff like. They're like, huh? What did we just do? Because it's not, because again, football over there is soccer. But those are separate licenses, and I think the only way they wind up getting those is if they purchase, if they were to purchase Topps outright. Same thing with Panini is to purchase it outright, and that may happen.
Yeah.
And if they continue on with those brands, I would absolutely love to see them bring back Topps Chrome football, Topps Chrome basketball, and things like that. I think that would excite people.
Yep.
A little bit more. So I'm not completely torn up about this deal right now.
No.
But I may be, a couple of years from now.
It could be murder. It could be. It could completely change the hobby forever in a great way or a horrid way, but one way or another, it's changing the landscape forever.
Yeah. Now here's a benefit though. They have so many athletes under contract already for autographs and memorabilia and things like that. It opens the door for them to do some pretty unique stuff.
It does.
Imagine, they're paying these guys more, for signings and things like that. So
they have relationships.
They have the relationships, but that may lead to something like the elimination of redemptions.
Right.
But it also leads to something, could be something really cool where, like football, as an example, you could wind up seeing, and these would have to be redemptions, but they'd be ready to go and they'd have to ship quickly. But, let's say they came back, whatever, Panini Prism football or whatever. Let's say they created a redemption card for a 1-of-1 autographed football where the football itself is designed as Prism, or something like that, where it could be serial number, whatever they want to do with it, but it adds the ability to put memorabilia into this stuff too, because they have a huge stock of memorabilia. And in theory, Panini and Topps and stuff like that, they could have done that in the past.
Right, but they're the ones that when it comes to jerseys and everything, that a lot of people don't know is Panini, the NFL doesn't just toss Panini a bunch of game-used jerseys. They have to go out and acquire all of these things. And
correct.
Fanatics has the infrastructure that was purposefully built to acquire that stuff. So you're looking at, like you said, memorabilia options that Panini and Topps, it could have taken them ages to be able to get their hands on, but Fanatics, has these relationships, has this stuff built up, has everything ready. It could open the door to some, and like I said, you've got an incredible hobby mind at the helm of running the day-to-day operations of the card company. And so I do see a lot of positives in this deal. I'm just very nervous because you tend to expect the worst these days because you've seen it so many times from so many other companies.
Yeah. And I think I think over time they'll probably be fine. But I think initially, if they weren't to acquire the Topps and Panini brands, I think you're going to see a revolt, from within the hobby, because nobody's going to want to be out there purchasing, Fanatics Series 1.
Right.
Now the other cool thing is, if my source is right and they do wind up, bringing on NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball, it does create the opportunity for a licensed multi-sport product.
Yes.
And that, I think, is going to spell trouble for one specific company that we both, we both love, and that's Leaf.
Yeah.
Leaf puts out a great product every year, with all rookies, slabbed, and
Leaf Pearls, one of the most beautiful sets every year. Yeah.
I absolutely, I love the looks of those products. I think Brian does a phenomenal job with design and production and things like that. But I think if they're able to acquire all the licenses, they could put out a a really solid multi-sport product and absolutely kill it.
Yes.
With that kind of stuff. So I am torn. It's one of those things I'm torn on where, my initial reaction is, all right, hobby's going to die as soon as the license is transferred.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is this opportunity for them, to potentially acquire the intellectual property, of the brands and be able to, continue to produce using those brand names and just slap the Fanatics logo on the back. And I'm totally okay with that.
Well, I do appreciate you coming back on and discussing everything going on. It's been absolutely insane, but I'll end it with this question. Craziest week in the hobby ever?
Definitely top 5.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure, what was crazier. Because, again, last week was kind of crazy because we had the release of National Treasures basketball.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of speculation that Miles Bridges had actually signed LaMelo Ball's cards.
Yeah, which I find funny because I'm going to put it on the record because I was going to talk about it and I talked about it on this episode already. Those National Treasures cards were signed at an event, so I find it even funnier. But,
Yeah. Now the other like going back, the Dak Prescott auto pen incident.
Yeah.
The trimming scandal with which we did touch on when we talked about PWCC and eBay back in 2019 when that popped up, and just the National this week was that in and of itself, or this year, that in and of itself was a crazy week in the hobby with everything that went on. So I would say definitely top 5.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's number 1, but it's definitely, towards the top of the list of the craziest weeks.
Absolutely. Well, guys, speaking of the Dak auto pen incident, that is a story that back when Let Me Get That Autograph was in its infancy, that's actually a story that we helped to break and had the initial interview with Steve Grad, who ended up being the one who found out about all that stuff. So definitely check out in the old episodes the interview with Steve Grad regarding that Dak auto pen situation back in the archives, because it's an incredible interview and he reveals an incredibly shocking news about the Dallas Cowboys and about how Dak Prescott's far from the first Dallas Cowboy quarterback to use an auto pen to get you your autographs on cards. But one of the craziest weeks in a long time. I think it's going to alter the landscape of the hobby for good. I hope it's a good thing, but we shall see. But Scott, man, thanks so much for coming on the show and back on the show, I should say. And
my pleasure, Drew. It's always fun being here.
Absolutely, man. Well, I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, brother. Thanks.
Whew. All right. Well, I'd like to thank my very special guests, Scott Rapoport and Ryan, for joining the show today. SGC, they're catching up, guys, and I'll give Peter and them credit. I've been very critical of them. We've worked together quite a bit. I know Peter and I know a lot of people in that organization that work there and that work with them. And I've been very critical of them as I had some horrid experiences the first time around with SGC. So to see what they're doing now, I am impressed with it. And, I think they do have a very good chance to surpass BGS and become, one of the go-to grading companies, which, depending on who you ask, they already are. I mean, shoot, the Honus Wagner that sold for $5 million, that was in an SGC slab, so a lot of people are already there. But the top stuff, guys, we're going to be touching on that a lot more. I'm going to try and set up a roundtable discussion here soon where we can talk about everything. And I'm in the process now of having someone from Topps themselves come on the show here shortly to discuss everything, as well as someone from Fanatics and Major League Baseball. So a lot more coverage of this to be had, as this is going to change the landscape of the hobby forever. We don't know what's going to happen, but it is definitely going to change a lot of things. Now, luckily, it's not one of those cut and dry right away changes. We have a little bit before it happens, but guys, it is happening, and it's shocking to me. But guys, one other thing that I do want to mention real quick is my deepest condolences to the family of Rick Altman, who is a hobby legend, owns one of the best stores, was so involved in the hobby, won the award for the TriStar Award for Best Hobby Shop. I mean, one of the nicest guys. He was at every single national. If you ever had any interaction with him, you knew he was absolutely amazing. But he unfortunately passed away, and so my condolences to his family. And they said that they are going to move forward with his business, so his name will live on. But even without that, your name will live on in the hobby, Rick, as you did so much for this hobby in general, and it was a pleasure to know you. And so unfortunately that happened right after the national, but we'll dedicate this episode of the show to you, my friend. All right, y'all. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of Let Me Get That Potograph. We've got so much to cover next week. We are back to a weekly format as we are back from the National and everything is getting back to normal. And, of course, I'd like to thank my awesome sponsors, Doghouse Breaks, Vintage Breaks, Walk-Off Cards, Card Ladder, and, of course, iHeartMedia and everyone else that is involved in powering the show, such as Wax Pack Nation. Could not do the show without you guys. Thank you so much. Your support means the world to us all. And of course, Vanity Slabs, the newest sponsor of Let Her Rip with our custom Vanity Slab logos. They look absolutely incredible. Make sure to check it out. Some amazing stuff those guys are doing over there. And of course, make sure to check out Let Her Rip every single Wednesday live at 9:30 Eastern on the Let Me Get That Potograph Facebook and YouTube, along with the Vintage Breaks Network, the Twitch, the YouTube, the Facebook, all of the Vintage Breaks Network. You can find Let Her Rip, and make sure to join the show and check out, win some free cards, enter into the giveaways, and check out some of the awesome products that are either about to hit the street or just hit the market. And then, of course, every single Saturday, Hobby Hotline, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Every single Saturday, different part of the crew will be joining you to go over all things hobby and take your questions and calls. This week, of course, we're going to have all hands on deck. No limit on how long it is, because with so much going on in the hobby, we all need to be there to talk about the craziness and where the hobby's going from here. But until next time, guys, you know the deal. Keep ripping those packs, pulling those hits, and we'll talk to you next week. Peace!